Homemade wine isn't always moonshine, although it can be pretty bad sometimes. Wine culture in Europe, especially the Mediterranean, is completely different than it is here where I am in America. Although there are great wines in America, it's considered more of a luxury product. Whereas in a lot of parts of Europe that are producing wine, it's something that's always at the dinner table. It's basically food. It's something that you have with a meal. In these wine producing regions, a lot of people have vineyards that have been passed down, and there's a lot of homemade wine in the cellars and the basements of people's homes. The bottled wines that we see on the shelves here in America, especially viewers of this channel, they're expensive to consume every single day. Think about it. If you had your own vineyard, you had the capacity to make your own wine, you probably wouldn't buy a lot of stuff. In some countries where there is a gray market for wine, people are making their own wine and selling to their neighbors, maybe even some of their dedicated loyal customers, which can be a problem. A lot of those vineyards that aren't registered to produce commercial wine, they're not documented under European law, therefore they can't be regulated. The consumption of those homemade wines isn't reported in the consumption per capita figures that you see all over the internet. In America during Prohibition, there was a huge black market for grapes being shipped from California to people all over the country so they could make their own alcohol, their own moonshine. Traveling all over the wine world, I've tasted a lot of these homemade wines, and 99 times out of 100 they are pretty bad, especially if your palate's used to drinking high-end bottled wine. However, once in a while you do bump into the occasional exceptions. You move a step up from homemade winemakers, you have kind of semi-professional people that are making their own wine at home, maybe winning local competitions. People are pushing them to maybe bottle and label their own wine, and they're in between. They're not really commercial on the market, but then they start making a label. They're thinking about bringing their wines to market. Sassicaia is a great example of this, one of the most famous wines in the world, hailing from Tuscany. The first bottles were actually produced in the 40s, but it wasn't commercial until 1968. I have two vintages of, I wouldn't say necessarily all the way homemade wine, but a person that's like in that transition of becoming a homemade winemaker, maybe to stepping into the professional commercial world. There's a story behind this. I just got back from Croatia where I judged the Concours Mondial de Bruxelles Rosé competition. It's a traveling competition. It's one of the most prestigious in Europe. There are multiple sessions a year. This session was dedicated only to rosé. I enjoyed it. I'm going to be actually doing a vlog on the main competition that will be held in Mexico this June, so stay tuned for that. Croatia is a country that's near and dear to my heart. I lived there for quite some time. I wrote a book about Croatian wines. I'm going there every year to keep up with the new vintages. At that competition, I judged with an enologist. Her name's Anna. I knew about her before, but I'd never really met her in person. We talked briefly, and she mentioned that she's working on a project that might become commercial in the coming years. It's a Croatian that lived abroad, but always wanted to have vineyards in Dalmatia, so he bought a few parcels of prestigious vineyards. I didn't really think that much about it. I said, oh, that's pretty cool. That's nice. But after the rosé competition was over, there was a press trip. I took a ferry from Split to the island of Hvar in southern Dalmatia. It's a spectacular island. The vineyards are really steep. Plavac is the main grape there. It's in the Mediterranean. It's a hot, dry climate. All the Plavac are on bush vines. I know those producers very well. We've met with a lot of producers, tasted through all of the new vintages. On the ferry back from Hvar to Split, somebody across the ferry waved at me, smiled, and I was looking around. I was like, is he talking to me? He came up and started talking to me, said, hey, I'm a big fan of the channel. At the time, I just got done with a full day of press trip tasting. I was a little tired. I didn't really want to talk to anybody. Then he started talking and saying, hey, I actually bought vineyards on the south side of Hvar. I have this enologist, Anna. Maybe you know her, working with me. And I was like, oh God, this is an odd coincidence. He just started planting the vineyards, but he asked me, he said, you know, there in Hvar, there's a producer there named Tonči Marjan. Have you ever heard of him? And I thought, no, actually, I haven't ever heard of this guy before. He said his wines are the reason I wanted to buy vineyards of Plavac on Hvar. I wanted to produce that wine. It's something that's really special. And I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. The man said, if you know Anna, I have a few bottles of Tonči Marjan's special reserve Plavac in the cellar, and you can talk to her. She can pass you a few bottles so you can taste them. I messaged Anna when I got back to the hotel. She said, hey, I'm going to come drop them off for you. So here I have them, 2017, 2019. I have no idea if they're gonna be good. I found it funny that I didn't know about this producer, Tonči Marjan, because I know a lot of these small Croatian producers that are only producing a few thousand bottles. I've never heard of him. Apparently, he submitted a Plavac Mali years ago to the Decanter World Wine Awards competition, won a medal. He doesn't even have a website, but if you go to the Florida Winemakers Association website, you can see a little page about him. It looks all nice up front, but when you click on the acquire link, all of a sudden the website goes dead. So I don't, he's kind of like in between. Is it homemade wine? Is it he's trying to move into bottling wine? There are some other producers in Florida that are in similar situations, and all over the Mediterranean for that matter. You have to know locals usually when you're traveling around these wine worlds to be able to taste these wines, probably like Sassicaia in the 40s and the 50s. So we're going to taste this. Here we go. We have a Plavac Mali 2017, 2019. I know the man told me that 2017 has a little bit of Cabernet Franc, a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon in them. Plavac Mali, if you don't know, is the offspring of the original Zinfandel named as Sorlianek Kastelinski or Tribodrag in Croatia. It's also known as Croatia in Montenegro. Plavac Mali is a late ripening, uneven variety. Produces wines that are really high in tannins, really high in alcohol. That's what I'm expecting to see here. But I've found that the Plavac Mali on the island of Hvar are a little bit softer. The tannins are a little bit more round, but they're still pretty tough. Nebbiolo or Mourvedre-esque. Let's take a look here. I know that 2017 was a warmer year in Dalmatia. 2019 was an excellent year in Croatia and all of Europe for that matter. I was actually in Croatia for part of these vintages. I remember 2017, that was a pretty hot summer. You have to also understand these kind of homemade wines or more, I guess, semi-professional wines usually made to local tastes. People in Croatia that love Plavac Mali really like the tannins, high alcohol, even sometimes like a little bit of residual sugar in the wine. Some of the best culty Plavac Mali wines do have a touch of residual sugar, which I don't think is a bad thing because it rounds out and covers up some of the harsh tannins. Let's start out with the first one here, 2017. Let's see here. This doesn't smell like homemade wine. It does smell like Plavac Mali. Definitely get strawberry jam, rose petal garrigue, a little bit of chocolate. It smells big, it smells rich. The thing about Plavac Mali, it's a big wine. It has some jammy characteristics, but it also has floral characteristics that you might see in something like Nebbiolo, sometimes Sangiovese, sometimes even Pinot Noir, which is quite a paradox. Okay, let's compare it to the nose of the 2019 here. 2019 is not as floral. It's similar. It's got the strawberry jam. It's got even a little more cherry, some chocolate type notes. It doesn't have the floral prettiness that 17 has. But these smell like serious wines. They smell big. I wonder if they're how high in alcohol they're going to be. They don't have labels. If they're going to have residual sugar. Wow. There is a touch here of residual sugar, but I think it balances out the high alcohol of Plavac Mali and the tannins. It's actually super good. Almost like Amarone-esque in richness. It's really good. Let's... Hold on. Tannins are round. Almost silky for Plavac. They're big, but this is not his wines anyway, by the way. He just gave me some of these from the personal collection. I was let's start out. Let's compare to 2019. Like I said, 2019 not as floral, a little more chocolate, cherry type notes. Wow. 2019 on the palate is more elegant, although 2017 has like the pretty nose. Again, some richness, almost Amarone-esque. In the past, I always wanted Plavac Mali to be a little bit lighter, but now I'm starting to think maybe it does need a little residual sugar to hide the tannins. Man, if I could combine the nose of 17 with the palate of 19, it'd be, I mean, I am... Ivan, I think that's your name. I am 93 plus. I think these are exceptional wines. Some of the best maybe homemade or like semi-professional wines I've ever tasted. And Ivan, good luck. I see why this is the type of Plavac Mali that you want to produce, and all the best to you. So tell me, have you ever tasted any homemade wines before, or wines that are like not brought to market yet? Any blockbusters or any bad experiences? I've had plenty. Let me know in the comments below. These are good.